Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. And every time I meet new devotees who hear that I'm doing this every single day without stop, although we have had one extra day we lost, but other than our long haul flights, every day, no matter what, they're amazed. I mean, I've gotten used to it. It doesn't seem like a big deal to me, but devotees who hear what I'm doing, they think it's a big deal. And then I talked to Davide, who's the fan page that I'm using to record these readings on. He keeps them all on his, computer, and he marveled. He said, "Maharaj, did you realize?" Because we were trying to transfer something that had to go over to another phone because my phone went out of battery. Then we had to go to another phone and then figure out how to transfer it to the same page, and so that everybody could get the whole thing. Anyway, I was talking to him and he said, "Mars, do you realize that just in a few days you'll have recorded the whole Bhagavatam like this, like I'm doing right now?" And I was amazed. I mean, I know I'm conscious that I've been recording it for more than a year and a half. But I was amazed because, of course, we haven't come to that point yet. It'll be some chapters into the 10th canto where I started from. But I'd like to welcome all of you out there in cyberspace, especially those of you who have been with me from the beginning of doing this, which was last March, a year ago last March. That's a year and a half. I deeply appreciate your association and the comments and questions you ask. And now it's up to 1,776 followers. So this is a miracle to me. It's a miracle wrought by Srila Prabhupada himself. So I thank you for that. And let's launch into the Bhagavatam. Before we read the Bhagavatam, every day we always read Sanatana Goswami's. Did you get the thing I sent you? Oh no, I haven't sent it yet. Did you get it? I don't think I sent it yet. You can check, because I might have forgotten. I've been known to forget over the last couple of years things. It's part of the work in progress. I don't think I did send it. I would have remembered sending all those. Anyway, Sanatana Goswami, after hearing from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and being empowered by him to write books, to elaborate upon and document and his teachings, Lord Chaitanya's teachings. Among the first books that he wrote was the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, intending to offer 108 obeisances to the Vrindavan pastimes of Krishna. And this 5 verses from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, which was that book, texts 412 to 416, form the 107th obeisance that he offered to Krishna Lila Stava. And this is particularly to the Bhagavatam, because the Bhagavatam gives us the pastimes of Krishna. Okay. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mahima Stotram. And it goes like this. Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwanduditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lords of devotees, O Master Srimad-Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bandhu Mad Sangin Mad Guru Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtadanga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadhu sadhuta dayin atini chochata kara hanamun chagadachin mam prem narit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we've reached 10th canto, 12th chapter, the killing of the demon Aghasura. Starting with text 27. The cowherd boys, just to remind those who weren't here last night, have just walked into the mouth of the Aghasura demon. After having a conversation, wondering what it is, some thought it was just a carved plaything for them. Some thought it was a real one, but even if they walked into it, Krishna would save them anyway, so they just joyfully walked into the mouth of the demon. Text 27. Krishna saw that all the cowherd boys, who did not know anyone but him as their Lord, had now gone out of his hand and were helpless, having entered like straws into the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. It was intolerable for Krishna to be separated from his friends, the cowherd boys. Therefore, as if seeing that this had been arranged by his internal potency, Krishna was momentarily struck with wonder and unsure of what to do. Text 28. Now what was to be done? How could both the killing of this demon and the saving of the devotees be performed simultaneously? Krishna, being unlimitedly potent, decided to wait for an intelligent means by which he could simultaneously save the boys and kill the demon. Then he entered the mouth of Aghasura. Purport. Krishna is known as Anantavirya Sarvagya because everything is known to him. Because he knows everything perfectly well, it was not difficult for him to find a means by which he could save the boys and at the same time kill the demon. Thus he also decided to enter the demon's mouth. 29. When Krishna entered the mouth of the Aghasura, the demigods hidden behind the clouds exclaimed, "Alas, alas!" But the friends of Aghasura, like Kamsa and other demons, were jubilant. Text 30. When the invisible Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, heard the demigods crying, "Alas, alas," from behind the clouds, he immediately enlarged himself within the demon's throat, just to save himself and the cowherd boys, his own associates, from the demon who wished to smash them. Purport. Such are the acts of Krishna, Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chadushkitam. By enlarging himself within the throat of the demon, Krishna suffocated and killed him, and at the same time saved himself and his associates from imminent death, and also saved the demigods from lamentation. Text 31. Then, because Krishna had increased the size of his body, the demon extended his own body to a very large size. Nonetheless, his breathing stopped. He suffocated, and his eyes rolled here and there and popped out. The demon's life air, however, could not pass through any outlet, and therefore it finally burst out through a hole in the top of the demon's head. Text 32. When all the demon's life air had passed away through that hole in the top of his head, Krishna glanced over the dead calves and cowherd boys and brought them back to life. Then Mukunda, who can give one liberation, came out from the demon's mouth with his friends and the calves. 33. From the body of the gigantic python, a glaring effulgence came out, illuminating all directions, and stayed individually in the sky until Krishna came out from the corpse's mouth. Then, as all the demigods looked on, this effulgence entered into Krishna's body. Purport. Apparently, the serpent named Aghasura, because of having received association with Krishna, attained mukti by entering Krishna's body. Entering the body of Krishna is called Sayuja Mukti, but later verses prove that Aghasura, like Dantavakra and others, received Sarupya Mukti. This has been broadly described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur with references from the Lagutoshani of Srila Jiva Goswami. Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti, being promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, to live with the same four-armed bodily features as Vishnu. The explanation of how this is so may be summarized as follows. The effulgence came out from the python's body and became purified, attaining spiritual Shuddha Sattva, freedom from material contamination. Because Krishna had stayed within the serpent's body, even after the serpent's death, one may doubt that such a demon full of mischievous activities could attain the liberation of Sarupya or Sayuja. And one may be astonished about this. But Krishna is so kind that in order to drive away such doubts, he had the effulgence, the individual life of the python, wait for some time in its individuality, in the presence of the demigods. Krishna is the full effulgence, and every living being is part and parcel of that effulgence. As proved here, the effulgence in every living being is individual. For some time, the effulgence remained outside the demon's body individually and did not mix with the whole effulgence, the Brahmajyoti. The Brahman effulgence is not visible to material eyes, but to prove that every living being is individual, Krishna had this individual effulgence stay outside the demon's body for some time, for everyone to see. Then Krishna proved that anyone killed by him attains liberation, whether Sayuja, Sarupya, Samipya, or whatever. But the liberation of those who are on the transcendental platform of love and affection is vimukti, special liberation. Thus the serpent first entered the body of Krishna personally and mixed with the Brahman effulgence. This merging is called Sayuja Mukti. But from later verses, we find that Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti. Text 38 explains that Aghasura attained a body exactly like that of Vishnu, and the verse after that also clearly states that he attained a completely spiritual body like that of Narayana. Therefore, in 2 or 3 places, the Bhagavatam has confirmed that Aghasura attained Sarupya Mukti. One may then argue, how is it that he mixed with the Brahman effulgence? The answer is that as Jai and Vijay, after 3 births, again attained Sarupya Mukti and association with the Lord, Aghasura received a similar liberation. Text 34. Thereafter, everyone being pleased, the demigods began to shower flowers from Nandana Kanana. The celestial dancing girls began to dance, and the Gandharvas, who are famous for singing, offered songs of prayer. The drummers began to beat their kettle drums, and the Brahmanas offered Vedic hymns. In this way, both in the heavens and on earth, everyone began to perform his own duties, glorifying the Lord. Purport. Everyone has some particular duty. The Shastras has concluded, Nirupita, that everyone should glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his own qualifications. If you are a singer, always glorify the Supreme Lord by singing very nicely. If you are a musician, glorify the Supreme Lord by playing musical instruments. Svanushthitasya dharmasya sangsidir haritoshanam. Bhagavatam 1:2-13. The perfection of life is to satisfy the personality of Godhead. Therefore, beginning from this earth up to the celestial kingdom, everyone engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everyone engaged in glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The decision of all great saintly persons is that whatever qualifications one has acquired, should be utilized to glorify the Supreme Lord. Idam hi pungsas tapasak shutasya va svatishtasya suktasya chabudi data yoho avichutor ta kavibir nirupito yarutama shloka gunanu varnanam. Learned sages have definitely concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, austerity, Vedic study, sacrifice, the chanting of hymns, and charity is found in the transcendental descriptions of the qualities of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Bhagavatam 1:5-22. This is the perfection of life. One should be trained how to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead by one's respective qualities. Education, austerity, penance, or in the modern world, business, industry, education, and so on. All should be engaged in glorifying the Lord. Then everyone in the world will be happy. Krishna comes, therefore, to exhibit his transcendental activities so that people may have the chance to glorify him in every respect. To understand how to glorify the Lord is actual research work. It is not that everything should be understood without God. That is condemned. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japastapaha Apranasyaiva Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. Hari Bhakti Vitsudodaya 3:11. Without Bhagavad Bhakti, Without glorification of the Supreme Lord, whatever we have is simply a decoration of the dead body. Text 35. When Lord Brahma heard the wonderful ceremony going on near his planet, accompanied by music and songs and sounds of Jai, Jai, he immediately came down to see the function. Upon seeing so much glorification of Lord Krishna, he was completely astonished. Interesting. I didn't remember this. So Brahma, when he came down to see Krishna, to check him out, he got this idea when he came to see the celestial singers and dancers glorifying Krishna for having killed Aghasura. It wasn't just on a whim. He actually saw something going on. Purport. Here the word anti means near, indicating that even in the higher planetary systems near Brahmaloka, like Maharloka, Janaloka, and Tapoloka, the festival of glorification of Krishna was going on. 36. O King Parikshit, when the python-shaped body of Aghasura dried up into merely a big skin, it became a wonderful place for the inhabitants of Vrindavan to visit, and it remained so for a long, long time. Like a playground construction. 37. This incident of Krishna's saving himself and his associates from death and of giving deliverance to Aghasura, who had assumed the form of a python, took place during Krishna's 5th year. It was disclosed in Brajabhumi after 1 year, as if it had taken place on that very day. Purport. The word mokshanam means liberation for the associates of Krishna and for Krishna himself. There is no question about liberation. They are already liberated, being in the spiritual world. In the material world there are birth, death, old age, and disease, but in the spiritual world there are no such things, because everything is eternal. As for the python, however, by the association of Krishna and his devotees, Aghasura also achieved the same facility of eternal life. Therefore, as indicated here by the word atmahi mokshanam, if the python, Aghasura, could receive eternal association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, what is to be said of those who are already associates of the Lord? Sakam bijaru kritapunya punjaha. Bhagavatam 10, 12, 11. Here is proof that God is good for everyone. Even when he kills someone, the one who was killed attains liberation. What then is to be said of those who are already in the association of the Lord? 38. Krishna is the cause of all causes. The causes and effects of the material world, both higher and lower, are all created by the Supreme Lord, the original controller. When Krishna appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, he did so by his causeless mercy. Consequently, for him to exhibit his unlimited opulence was not at all wonderful. Indeed, he showed such great mercy that even Aghasura, the most sinful miscreant, was elevated to being one of his associates and achieving sarupya mukti, which is actually impossible for materially contaminated persons to attain. Purport. The word maya is also used in conjunction with love. Out of maya, love, a father has affection for his child. Therefore, the word mayina indicates that Krishna, out of love appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and assumed the form of a human child. Manu Jarbha. Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the creator of cause and effect, and he is the supreme controller. Nothing is impossible for him. Therefore, that he enabled even a living being like Aghasura to attain the salvation of Sarupya Mukti was not at all wonderful for Krishna. Krishna took pleasure in entering the mouth of Aghasura and sporting in a sporting spirit along with his associates. Therefore, when Aghasura, by that sporting association as maintained in the spiritual world, was purified of all contamination, he attained Sarupya Mukti and Vimukti by the grace of Krishna. For Krishna, this was not at all wonderful. Text 39. If even only once, or even by force, one brings the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead into one's mind, one can attain the supreme salvation by the mercy of Krishna, as did Aghasura. What then is to be said of those whose hearts What then is to be said of those whose hearts the Supreme Personality of Godhead enters when he appears as an incarnation? Or those who always think of the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the source of transcendental bliss for all living entities, and by whom all illusion is completely removed. Purport. The process for receiving the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described here. Yat pada pankaja palajak bilasa bhaktya. Bhagavatam 4:22-39. Simply by thinking of Krishna, one can attain him very easily. Would anyone like to hear that again besides me? Oh, all right. Simply by thinking of Krishna, one can attain him very easily. Krishna is also described as having his lotus feet always within the hearts of his devotees. Bhagavan Bhakta Riddhi Stita. In the case of Aghasura, one may argue that he was not a devotee. The answer to this is that he thought of Krishna for a moment with devotion. Bhaktya ham ekayagraya. Without devotion, one cannot think of Krishna, and conversely, whenever one thinks of Krishna, one undoubtedly has devotion. Although Aghasura's purpose was to kill Krishna, for a moment, Aghasura thought of Krishna with devotion. And Krishna and his associates wanted to sport within Aghasura's mouth. Similarly, Putana wanted to kill Krishna by poisoning him, but Krishna took her as his mother because he had accepted the milk of her breast. Swalpamapya siddharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Bhagavad Gita 2:40. Especially when Krishna appears as an avatar. Anyone who thinks of Krishna in his different incarnations, Ramadi Murtishu Kala Niyamena Tishtan, and especially in his original form as Krishna, attains salvation. There are many instances of this, and among them is Aghasura, who attained the salvation of Sarupya Mukti. Therefore the process is Satatam, Kirtniyanto Mam Yatantascha Dridavrataha. Bhagavad Gita 9:14. Those who are devotees always engage in glorifying Krishna. Advaitam Achyutam Anadam Ananta Rupam When we speak of Krishna, we refer to all his avatars, such as Krishna, Govinda, Narayana, Vishnu, Lord Chaitanya, Krishna Balaram, and Shyamasundar. One who always thinks of Krishna must attain vimukti, special salvation, as the Lord's personal associate. Not necessarily in Vrindavan, but at least in Vaikuntha. This is called Surupi Mukti. Text 40. Sri Sutta Goswami said, O learned saints, the childhood pastimes of Sri Krishna are very wonderful. Maharaj Parikshit, after hearing about those pastimes of Krishna, who had saved him in the womb of his mother, became steady in his mind and again inquired from Shukadev Goswami to hear about those pious activities. Text 41. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, O great sage, how could things done in the past have been described as being done in the present? Lord Sri Krishna performed this pastime of killing Aghasura during his Komara age. How then, during his Poganda age, could the boys have described this incident as having happened recently? Text 42. O greatest yogi, my spiritual master, kindly describe why this happened. I am very much curious to know about it. I think that it was nothing but another illusion due to Krishna. Purport. Krishna has many potencies. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate, Shvetashvatara Upanishad 6:8. The description of Aghasura was disclosed after 1 year. Some act of Krishna's potency must have been involved. Therefore, Maharaj Parikshit was very curious to know about this, and he requested Shukadev Goswami to explain it. Text 43. O my Lord, my spiritual master, although we are the lowest of Kshatriyas, we are glorified and benefited because we have the opportunity of always hearing from you the nectar of the pious activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The pious activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are very confidential. It is not ordinarily possible to hear such activities unless one is very, very fortunate. I think I made that point today, didn't I? Something like that? Unconscious competence. It is not ordinarily possible to hear such activities unless one is very, very fortunate. Parikshit Maharaj placed himself as Chatra Bandhava, which means the lowest of the Kshatriyas. The qualities of the Kshatriyas are described in Bhagavad Gita, and although the general quality of the Kshatriya is Ishvara Bhava, the tendency to rule, a Kshatriya is not supposed to rule over a Brahmana. Thus Maharaj Parikshit regretted that he had wanted to rule over the Brahmanas and had therefore been cursed. He considered himself the lowest of the Kshatriyas. Dhanam Ishvara Bhavas Chatram Karma Sabhavajam. There was no doubt that Maharaj Parikshit had the good qualities of a Kshatriya, but as a devotee, he presented himself with submissiveness and humility as the lowest of the Kshatriyas, remembering his act of wrapping a dead serpent around the neck of a Brahmana. A student and disciple has the right to ask the Guru about any confidential service, and it is the duty of the Guru to explain these confidential matters to his disciple. Text 44. Sutta Goswami said, O Shonika, greatest of saints and devotees, when Maharaj Parikshit inquired from Shukadev Goswami in this way, Shukadev Goswami immediately remembering subject matters about Krishna within the core of his heart, externally lost contact with the actions of his senses. Thereafter, with great difficulty, he revived his external sensory perception and began to speak to Maharaj Parikshit about Krishna Katha. So Krishna Katha is not ordinary. It has to come from the spiritual plane. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 10th canto, 12th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled The Killing of the Demon Aghasura. Haribo! 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 Yai-ho! Okay, Aghasura got his. So wonderful, Krishna, he kills these demons, and he's the only form that will kill demons like he does, and they get Sarup Vimukti. No one else. Ramachandra, just a few, 2 or 3 or 4 like that. And the other incarnations, none. They don't get Sarup Vimukti. Sometimes they get liberation, impersonal liberation. But only Krishna does this. And especially in his childhood pastimes. It's wonderful. Okay. Chapter 13, the stealing of the boys and calves by Brahma. This is one of my favorite. You know about this pastime? You've heard about it? You haven't heard it yet? Oh boy, lucky you. How many pages is it? I want to read the whole thing so he can hear. Bhakta Ben. Okay, we'll do what we can. At least we'll hear the summary. This chapter describes Lord Brahma's attempt to take away the calves and cowherd boys. And it also describes the bewilderment of Lord Brahma, and finally, the clearance of his illusion. Although the incident concerning Aghasura had been performed 1 year before, when the cowherd boys were in their 5th year, when they were in their 6th year, they said, "It happened today." In other words, they came back a year later into the village and said, "You know what happened today? Krishna killed this huge python, snake." What happened was this. After killing Aghasura, Krishna, along with his associates, the cowherd boys, went for a picnic within the forest. Remember what we said? Remember? So they could stop playing and have lunch. A demon comes and Krishna kills them, and then they have lunch every day. The calves, being allured by green grasses, gradually went far away, and therefore Krishna's associates became a little agitated and wanted to bring back the calves. Krishna, however, encouraged the boys by saying, "You take your tiffin without being agitated. I shall go and find the calves." And thus the Lord departed. Then, just to examine the potency of Krishna, Lord Brahma took away all the calves and cowherd boys and kept them in a secluded place. When Krishna was unable to find the calves and boys, he could understand that this was a trick performed by Brahma. Then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, in order to please Lord Brahma, as well as his own associates and their mothers, expanded himself to become the calves and boys, exactly as they were before. In this way, he discovered another pastime. A special feature of this pastime was that the mothers of the cowherd boys thus became more attached to their respective sons, and the cows became more attached to their children, their calves. After nearly a year, Baladev observed that all the cowherd boys and calves were expansions of Krishna. Thus he inquired from Krishna and was informed of what had happened. When 1 full year had passed, Brahma returned and saw that Krishna was still engaged as usual with his friends and the calves and cows. Then Krishna exhibited all the calves and cowherd boys as 4-armed forms of Narayana. Brahma could then understand Krishna's potency, and he was astonished by the pastimes of Krishna, his worshipable Lord. Krishna, however, bestowed his causeless mercy upon Brahma and released him from illusion. Thus Brahma began to offer prayers to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just picture this. We heard it in the previous chapter. How many cowherd boys were there? More than 100,000. How many calves? Each one of them had hundreds of thousands of calves. So Krishna immediately expanded himself into all those calves and all those cows. They looked identical in all detail. Dress, behavior, mannerisms. But it was Krishna, personally. It wasn't the individual souls. And then went into the village. Because how could he go back into the village without his cows and calves? And everybody would be freaked out completely. And he did this for 1 full year. Brahma, he went away. He was just playing a trick on Krishna. Remember? He saw the celebrations going on, in the higher planets when Krishna killed Aghasura. And during that, he heard these songs saying how wonderful it was that Krishna, the Supreme Lord, had just killed Aghasura. So this made Brahma curious. His Lord. And he came down and he saw his Lord sitting like a cowherd boy with his friends in the forest having a picnic, taking food from their plate, and carrying the food in his hand. Brahma's saying, I don't think so. This can't be my Lord. Look at him acting like a little kid. And then he, by his own mystic power, he stole all the cows and calves and put him in a cave somewhere. One year, when Brahma left just for one of his moments is like a long time. So he just went away for a second of his time, and it was a whole year of earth time. Now that's mystic potency. Are you here tomorrow night? No, this is the last night. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell the story a little bit just to help Bhakta Ben, because he hasn't heard this full story. So Brahma came back, and there is Krishna sitting there having his picnic with his cows and calves. And Brahma says, wait a second. What is going on here? So he went and he checked, and there were the cows and calves. They were in a spell. They were under mystic, slumber by his potency. Because Brahma is very powerful. He's almost as powerful as Krishna. Maintains the whole universe. So they came back, and there's Krishna. The cow. What's going on here? And Krishna looked at him, and turned all of those forms into Vishnu forms. And not only Vishnu forms, but the whole universe. That in each Vishnu form was maintaining a whole universe. And he saw all these personalities. This is all within a space of like, I don't know, space of the little chunk of the village. All these things he saw. So for a whole year, Krishna had gone back into the village, come back out, played with himself, gone back outside. In the meantime, the mothers of the cowherd boys, who, by the way, love Krishna more than their own children, that's Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, everyone loves Krishna the most. They still love their children, their family members, but they love Krishna more than anyone else. So all of a sudden, they're feeding their boys from the breast milk, and they're loving the boys more than as much as they love Krishna. They were completely bewildered, you know? And the same thing happened with the calves and the cows. The cows, they saw the calves, they left the cowherd men are trying to, you know, keep the cows, you know, graze them, and they just saw their calves and just went running down to go over the hill. The cowherd men are trying to stop them. Oh, you can't go there. No, no, no. So in that way, Krishna took the milk from all the ladies and all of the boys and all the cows, the mothers of the calves, and gave them topmost ecstasy. Brahma couldn't understand it. So then Krishna showed him the Vishnu forms. Then he said, and around every Vishnu form, all the demigods were offering prayers. You can imagine the sound that was going on. It was like a huge sacrifice going on. And Brahma couldn't understand. He's got really big intelligence, and he couldn't understand. Just as he was about to faint, just as he was about to lose consciousness, then Krishna goes, closes the Yogamaya curtain, and there again is Krishna, and the cowherd boys and calves, and Brahma just falls down on his face. And then the next chapter, he offers his prayers by Lord Brahma to Lord Krishna, to beg forgiveness for his impudence and his offense. And those prayers, they're quoted all over the Bhagavatam, all over the purports of the Bhagavatam, by all the acharyas. They're the most wonderful prayers. We'll hear that later on. It's 7 o'clock, I think we'll stop there. So we just did the, did we? Did we finish the summary? Yes. So we'll start with chapter 1 tomorrow. Okay, now comes the magical moment. After the magical moment, after the magical moment. And we get to remember what we heard and relish again, like cows chewing their cud. Open mic. Or we can just sit and relish. It's okay. Whatever. Okay, Dialu's got something. Somebody's going to break the ice.
So you were saying about you were speaking about Lord Brahma, and he was astonished to see Krishna in this position. But I was just wondering, would that mean that, like, say, as a limited entity, how much can we know about Krishna?
Yeah, well, it's true. That's true, but it's particularly wonderful because Brahma has got huge intelligence, huge capacity to understand things. So the fact that he became bewildered is incredible. Definite proof that Krishna is greater than Brahma. And the fact that he showed all of the Vishnu forms and the universes, he showed him everything. It was like he showed him, he showed Arjuna one universal form of that universe. He showed so many universal forms of so many universes all at once. And he did the same thing in a little different way. One time when Brahma came to Dwarka to see him, remember that pastime? And when Brahma came, he was stopped at the door by the doorkeeper, and the doorkeeper asked who's come, or he went to Krishna. He said, "Who's here?" And Brahma's here. Okay, so he went to Krishna. Krishna said, "Go and ask him which Brahma." So then he came back and he said, "Okay, you can come with me, but first of all, he wants to know which Brahma." Brahma says, "Which Brahma?" So then he goes in to see Krishna and he says, I just wanted to come and see you and let you know everything's okay, but before I do, I'd like to know why did you ask which Brahma? Is there another Brahma? And then Krishna, by meditation, called all the Brahmas from all the universes, and they all showed up instantaneously inside his courtroom. Some of these Brahmas had 10 heads, some had 100, some had 1,000, some had 100,000, some had 1,000,000, some had 10 millions heads, each one of them. And they all came into the room, and by Krishna's potency, only Brahma, four-headed Brahma, could see them all at the same time. The others just could see, they were just with Krishna. And then they all paid obeisances to Krishna at the same time, and the helmets that were on every one of those heads touched the ground simultaneously, and it sounded like, the earth was going to quake or something. It was like, and Brahma's just blown away completely. This was later on in Krishna's pastime. So Krishna's pastimes, they're called Nitya Leela, right? In other words, the moment that Krishna appears and that pastime is over, it starts in another universe. And it goes around through all the universes before it comes back here. Well, maybe not all of them, 6 billion. And there's more than 6 billion universes. How many hair holes do you have in your body? Do you know? Anybody? You counted? Anyway, there's a lot of universes. So all those Brahmas came in. And then Krishna explained to Brahma after they left. He said, so you're actually the Brahma of the smallest universe, and therefore you only need 4 heads to manage it. But in universes that are millions of times bigger, they need a lot more capacity. It's like getting your Mac computer upgraded every year, More capacity. Anyway.
Yeah, I was just wondering, sometimes we might Krishna says those who study the sacred conversation of mind worships me by their intelligence.
Yeah.
So is that also worshipping Krishna's own intelligence? Because sometimes how do we not fall into the trap of thinking that might sound like, oh, by my intelligence, and I'm worshipping Krishna with my intelligence, I'm going to reveal Krishna by my intelligence? Or
it means he's talking about the Gita. One who worships this sacred conversation worships me by his intelligence. Because to sit down and try to understand it, that requires intelligence. Whereas you may offer your arti or do something else, sing songs or something like that, but to study the Gita means to worship it with your intelligence, because you can't understand it without intelligence. That's what it means. But it also says that you can't explain it to someone who's not austere, who's not served a devotee, who is not a devotee. So you can't just understand it by the intelligence either. So it requires spiritual intelligence. Krishna, when a person becomes so interested in him and what he says that he tries to understand it deeply, then that attracts Krishna, that pleases Krishna. Just like you land in a foreign airport somewhere, foreign country, you don't speak the language, you don't have any foreign exchange, and then the person who was supposed to pick you up doesn't show up. And there you are in the airport without any idea of language. You can't speak the language, you don't have any money, you're just bewildered, And then all of a sudden you hear over the loudspeaker system your name. Would Dailu please come to the information phone, because we have a friend here. You can become ecstatic. So, we like to hear the sound of our name. Krishna, he likes to hear the sound of his name. He likes to hear someone trying to understand what he says seriously. So that's what it means to worship by the intelligence.
Was Lord Brahma trying to do that? Was Lord Brahma trying to do that?
Yeah. But no, he was challenging. He was trying to test Krishna. He couldn't quite get it. This little boy who was acting like a little boy playing with his friends in the forest was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his master. He couldn't quite get it. So Krishna showed him. Means you can't actually understand Krishna through your mundane intelligence. But that's a special pastime. Brahma is the most intelligent person in the universe. So therefore, to teach all of us just how inconceivable Krishna is, he played this pastime, and to convince Brahma also that his intelligence isn't so great. His position isn't so great. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Who else? You grabbed the mic like you wanted to say something.
I guess just the thing you said about that Krishna being inconceivable. I've heard you say before that we're supposed to accept to the degree that we can that Krishna is inconceivable, and that'll help us to understand.
Yes.
So it just seems confusing to accept something that's inconceivable.
Well, to accept Krishna as inconceivable doesn't mean that you can't understand anything about Krishna. It just, you can't understand very much about Krishna. In other words, when Krishna exhibits his inconceivability, then you realize, practically just how small you are in relationship to Krishna. But it was Jiva Goswami who said that in the Tattva Sandarbha. He said that unless you actually accept that Krishna is inconceivable, you can't begin to understand him. Because when you hear that pastime, you'll just accept it as mythology. How is it possible that he expanded himself into all those forms to Lord Brahma like he did, and then expanded all his forms into all the cowherd boys exactly, and fooled all the mothers? How could you fool your mother? The mothers. Mother knows the child very intimately. And the fathers also. When they became upset that the cows were running out to the calves, then when they saw the calves and they saw their own boys, they became bewildered in ecstatic love, like they do when they see Krishna. They went running to the boys and smelled their head and put him on the laps and hugged them, and the calves are going after the mother's milk, and it's like it was chaos, in terms of what they're supposed to do, to take care of the cows in the forest. So, unless you are blessed with transcendental intelligence, you can't understand it. So that's what Jiva Goswami means. You have to actually accept that Krishna can do anything. That's what it means to accept that he's inconceivable. There's nothing that he can't do. So then you see him doing something like that, the devotee thinks, it's nothing. Created all the universes and maintaining the spiritual world and all these pastimes. Then your love comes to another level, Not that, you're not going to be able to worship Krishna until you can understand all those things. Though actually that kind of knowledge gets in the way of pure love. So that's the beginning stage, to understand that Krishna is inconceivable, and then to be able to understand, that the stories in the Bhagavatam are true, actually true. They're historical events. Then one can begin to really appreciate, and from that appreciation, from that hearing, from the service that you do by hearing with love and affection and with amazement, then it comes gradually to pure love. When you no longer need to know all those things. That's why Mother Yashoda, when she sees the universal form of the Lord in Krishna's mouth, she just thinks, at first she thinks it's some kind of something wrong with her. You read the pastime? She first says, I'm not crazy. I'm thinking straight. I'm not asleep. I'm not dreaming because my eyes are open. She goes through this whole thing before she understands that this must be something that either demigod or providence or Krishna did. And then just momentarily, she thinks maybe Krishna did this. And then, anyway, Krishna here, and then gave the breast and, takes care of him like he's her son. That transcendental love, which is beyond, doesn't need to know all those things, She just loves Krishna like her little boy. Pure love. And Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it's second or third chapter, Adi Lila, Krishna says in one of the verses that I will go and I will bewilder everyone by my pastimes, which are so wonderful they will bewilder everyone. That's why Krishna comes and shows all these pastimes so that we can have something to hear about transcendental. Yes, I've been waiting for Nimai Pandit. I'm just filling in space until you speak.
Well, I hope this doesn't disappoint you. I feel it might. We're talking about trying to understand Krishna, and sometimes we hear this analogy with when a play is being enacted, that one has to suspend one's disbelief to understand it. So does that kind of relate to some extent in how we can begin to understand Krishna?
It does, except it isn't our suspending our own disbelief. Yogamaya dispends.
Oh, right, yeah, obviously.
Suspends our disbelief.
Oh, right.
Another way of saying it could be, Yogamaya suspends our belief. Depending on who we are and what the pastime is and the effect that's needed in order to us to be able to understand and then appreciate and where we are in our spiritual attainment. But yeah, I think that analogy is good. That Yogamaya suspends our disbelief and therefore we can accept Krishna for what he is, for who he is.
Because it's
that's Yogamaya. It's like you have your relative is up on the stage playing some real famous part, Hamlet or whatever, some Shakespearean character, and you know who it is. But of course, depending on how expert he is, if he's really expert, and if makeup people are really expert, they might not. But even if you do know that it's, because you're close associate, close relative, then yes, then you have to enjoy the play, and rather than just giggle and make fun of him because he's dressed up like he is. In order to actually enjoy the play, then you have to, suspend your disbelief. Or in another sense, just suspend your belief that that's your relative or your friend.
So what would you say is because it's very difficult to, we have an intellectual understanding of things, but sometimes that just seems to be like a major impediment.
It bypasses.
The
transcendental sound bypasses the mundane intelligence. The spiritual sound bypasses the intelligence. It's not needed to understand. As a matter of fact, it does that. It does exactly that. It gets in the way. Especially those of us who are trained in the West in scientific thinking. It gives us a spiritual experience. And when we actually get a spiritual experience, then that solidifies our faith and allows us to go deeper without analyzing everything. There's these famous verses, someone could, roll up the universe like a blanket or like something like that, or count all the stars in the sky or all the grains of sand and the beaches on the earth. Still they wouldn't be able to understand Krishna, the glories of Krishna. So therefore you can't actually understand Krishna in that way. through an analytical study. It's not like when you go to university and you're learning a subject and you cram for the exam and you learn it, then you get your A or your whatever grade, and then you get your diploma, and then you get your job, and then most of it goes away. All the things that you learn, it just goes away. It's like that's academic knowledge, unless one goes into higher and higher. There are people who go higher topics and learn more. But most people just go to university just to get a degree so they get a better job or something. So Krishna consciousness is not like that, and you can't understand Krishna like that. Bhaktya mama vijamati yavanyas jaspitat. Only by devotional service. Only by performing sincere devotional service to please Krishna can you understand, because Krishna then gives you the intelligence from within the heart, which transcends the synapses in the brain. Something? Bhakta Ben has something.
Yeah, thank you. That was really nice to hear about how Krishna has like a sense of humor.
Yes.
Like the way like Brahma's trying to play a prank.
Yes.
And he's like flips it.
Yes.
Reminds me of in the Gita it says
Oh
something like,
yes.
I'm the cheater in cheats or something
Yes.
like that. It's just
Exactly.
Like
Exactly.
flipperoo.
That's exactly right. There's no cliff notes you can read to pass the test and get a good grade. Just because someone, you know that cliff notes? No, and maybe it's just in America. They have these companies that make notes on all the courses, and you can just take the short notes and learn enough to pass the course. And sometimes won't even go to the classes.
Yeah, same things are available here in the UK.
Yeah. It's a racket. It's become a racket.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I forgot my question now. That was it. It's not to do with the chapter though, is that okay?
You sure?
I mean, it's partly to do with the chapter, but indirectly. What's the best way to read Srila Prabhupada's books? We hear, I hear that sometimes some devotees read, 41 pages a day. They do it by pages, and some devotees do it by time. How can we best read? What's the best way to do it?
Satam basangam mama virya sambido bhavanti yat rasayana kata. The best way is in the association of other devotees, to hear. That's the best way, to hear in the association of other devotees. And especially devotees that have a taste. I started, when Vaisheshika Prabhu and I started the 41 pages a day thing, because we calculated how long it would take, to read the Bhagavatam in 1 year, and it was 41 pages. And I did that for a while, quite some time. And then I had an experience. Actually, it's in one of my offerings that I'm going to send you. Then you can share with the boys, read it together. I had a near-death experience 2 years ago. I got typhoid fever. And it was complicated because I was here. I was in London. I definitely picked up the bacteria. It's a bacterial infection, typhoid. It's a heavy bacterial infection, but it's just a bacterial infection. It's not like some mystical thing, Anyway, I picked it up in India, the fever came out in London, then I came here. I was supposed to come here, and then it went just through the roof, and I couldn't do anything. They took me to the GP, and then I went to the hospital. I think I went to, it was, Canterbury Hospital. And I was there for like 3 or 4 days, and they shot me full of these heavy antibiotics, worse than the fever. And then the fever went down. And it happened to be Sunday, and Hari Krishna Dasi and Pundarik came. They were both doctors, NHS doctors, so they talked and this and that, and then they let me go. But they didn't actually do all the tests. They didn't get all the tests back, and they didn't know what it was. So I got on a plane the day after I left the hospital. I went on a plane and I went to Dallas. And then after about a week or so, it just came back, roaring back. And we didn't know what it was. And apparently, I gave him my phone number here, but they couldn't get a hold of me because I didn't get, anyway. So it got worse and worse, and then I ended up in Houston, and the doctors taking care of me there, devotee doctor, Guru Bhakti, and Hari Ballabh, and I was really sick. Like I got really sick. Like there was hardly any water in my blood. When there's no water in your blood, you're dead. That's it. So anyway, Guru Bhakti detected what was happening. The first blood test I got with it, and she got this kind of liquid phosphorus or something, and I would drink it. Anyway, at that moment I was very, very weak, but I kept the reading going every day. And one day I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita out loud by myself, and it was like Antya-lila, some wonderful pastime of Lord Chaitanya, and just before I started to read, I got this sensation within me that I didn't have anything. Later on I found out from Guru Bhakti that she was trying to keep me in my body, so I didn't know how sick I was. But then I heard, it was the same sound I was hearing, I was reading out loud, and but I heard more. It sounded different. And then I got this realization that if you hear completely, in other words, without any argument, without any resistance, without thinking that anything is yours, then you can get Krishna consciousness, you can get the presence of Krishna, the presence of Lord Chaitanya, just by the hearing, without any of the other study and memorizing verses and all these different things. So I had that experience, direct, that it bypassed everything. I couldn't even relate to the outside world at that point. How I did that, I don't know. How it was some kind of miracle or something. How I kept the reading going every day through that. But I got a lot of strength from that. Then I understood, rather than doing 41 pages a day, why don't I try to just hear properly with the proper consciousness? And I've been kind of emphasizing that ever since. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Just to continue from that. So when you were you reading the Sanskrit verses as well, or was it just the translations?
I was reading just the translations, and I was reading the Bengali or the Sanskrit in the purports.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was reading those. Because sometimes if the Sanskrit or Bengali is embedded inside a sentence, and it doesn't make any sense so then I read the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, because I've heard before that reading the Sanskrit is potent, really potent as well, even though you may not be able to understand it.
Yes, it is. But it's also that at the same time, Prabhupada's English is as good. You can get the full thing by hearing from Prabhupada's translations of the verses. They're empowered like that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
There's just one comment from Sudevi Dasi that I missed yesterday.
Oh, yes. Read it clear. Remember what I said this morning? Read it loud and clear so we can all hear. This is from Sudevi, who is from Florida, and she's a regular listener every day. And she had this question from yesterday. But
Sudevi Dasi says, Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. I love hearing these pastimes, especially speaking about the cowherd boys being fearless in front of demons because they have experienced Krishna saving them many times before. It reminds me of my life, how many times in face of difficulty, turning to Krishna has softened the blows, and I need to remember each time I am faced with problems. Remembering Krishna is the only way to feel safe, and hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam each day has increased this fearlessness. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Interesting, because in spiritual consciousness, when you hear, or in the spiritual world, when you see Krishna, or there's a pastime, it's as if you are seeing it or hearing it for the first time, every time. So there's no question of boredom in the spiritual world. Or even here, when you can hear on that level that I was talking about. I got that feeling because of the health issue. It's not that I had some kind of spiritual realization, but it just took all of my conceptions that I owned anything or had anything, or what I got that. I was reading within that consciousness, which is, according to the scriptures, the way you're supposed to read, without any resistance whatsoever. So it was a kind of a fluke, That's the way I looked at it, because I didn't keep that same. There wasn't like, but something changed. Something changed in my hearing, but it didn't come to the same level as it was that night. But I'm always trying to get back to it. It's kind of like that. Rupa Goswami calls it shadow attachment, when you get a special encouragement from Krishna. Like when you first become a devotee and you do kirtan for the first time or take prasadam for the first time, and it's like, wow! It's like your whole life changes instantaneously, right? And then you may not get that feeling all the time. But Krishna is giving you that experience so that so that you have evidence, yes, you're going the right way. And then it gives you strength to keep going, even though sometimes you don't have the taste. And if you keep going, then eventually you get the real thing. So yes, when you hear, as you advance in Krishna consciousness, each time you hear, it gets newer and newer fresher and fresher, and finally you reach the spiritual plane, and then it's like hearing it for the first time every time. There's some verses in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita of Sanatana Goswami where Gopakumar, who's the character in the second part, finally makes it after going through all different places and being educated. He was a young boy, and he finally got back to Goloka Vrindavan, and he was a cowherd boy, and his spiritual master gave him this blessing that he could utilize his boyish propensities to travel here and there and find out everything, in a way that he could come to his original position as a cowherd boy in Govardhan. And he's describing what it's like when he first got there. There was a wonderful description of him meeting Krishna, and then he says during his explanation, it's kind of he's entering. Anyway, it's a long story, but he talks about how Krishna goes to kill Kamsa in the spiritual world. Nobody gets killed in the spiritual world, but he goes to kill Kamsa. Only in the spiritual world he comes right back, and then sometime later he goes to kill Kamsa again, and every time that happens, it's the first time. So there's no time and space. That's what it means, that there's no time and space in the spiritual world. But there's activities, and there's relationships, and there's loving exchanges. But there's no time and space. It's all spiritual energy. So therefore, there's never any boredom. We may think, oh, Krishna's having the same pastime again, how boring. There are people who think like that. But when you're in spiritual consciousness, it's like the first time. Every time. You taste something, and after a while, when it's really good, you taste something, and you kind of relish it for a few more minutes, or keep it in your, eat it slower, or get a special sweet or something, eat it slowly just to prolong the experience. But eventually it goes away, the taste. But in the spiritual world, nothing goes away. Just one experience adds to another, adds to another, adds to another, forever. That's inconceivable. No birth, no death, no old age, no disease, and full facility. You don't have to work. Just like we heard about the pastimes of Krishna and cowherd boys and what they're doing. Every time they do that, it's like they're doing it for the first time. Gentlemen, I think I'm going to stop now because I've been going all day and I need to take rest. Hare Krishna. I'm also jet lagged still. Thank you so much, everyone out there in cyberspace, as usual, for giving me oodles of inspiration and reason for living, reason for reading Prabhupada's books every day. By your mercy, I've been able to do it every day for a long time now, and I'm getting such a taste I can never give it up. No question of getting tired of it or giving it up. I was told by Vijay Govinda, not Vijay Govinda, by Davide, I don't remember if I said this on the video or not, but anyway, I'll say it again just in case, that it's coming up to the time, I don't know when we'll come to it, but it's coming up to the time where we're coming full circle. When we started recording in Folkestone, in March of last year. Yeah, March of last year. March, April, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, a year and a half ago. And now we're coming full circle, so we'll have recorded like this the whole Bhagavatam with these wonderful comments and reflections. And what a nice thing that is. And David is trying to think of how we can organize it and put it in different places and, maybe bring more people into it like that. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Killing of Aghasura ki jai. Nanda Yashoda ki jai. All the cowherd boys ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. See you tomorrow night, same time, same station, right here in Hode Farm, between Folkestone and what's the town? Canterbury, in Hode Farm. Hare Krishna. Olive Tree Cottage. Hare Krishna.